Only very few caves are actually being protected. And in some cases, these caves are highly impacted with ecotourism. And that's another impact to bat conservation probably in caves.
So I think ecotourism can be a very, very positive thing. It's positive in that it draws attention to nature, to wildlife. However, it really needs to be done in a smart way, in a sustainable way. Unregulated, unplanned tourism in caves can be very detrimental and can contribute to the decline of bats instead of helping to restore them.
The status of cave bats and the status of caves in the Philippines is really bad. Out of the many caves that we have surveyed, you cannot see a cave that has not been entered by humans or not has been exploited.
There are a tremendous number of conservation problems in the Philippines.
The story in the Philippines is repeated everywhere. It's repeated in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Cambodia, all over. Caves are disturbed, bat populations are declining. There are so many threats to bats in the Philippines. However, a lot of good things are happening too. The really exciting thing is that the Philippines is really leading the pack in terms of cave conservation.
In the recent years, there had been attention given to cave conservation and also given to bat conservation awareness. This has been implemented by a number of institutions, many of which are on the conservation side and also on the research aspect.
The Philippines has laws on the book. It has the Cave Act, which formally protects caves and restricts access to caves.
We already have a policy in place. We have a strong law that can actually implement the enforcement of this conservation of caves and bats and wildlife.
Bats are both protected under the Cave Resources Protection Act as well as under the Wildlife Act. If species are identified as threatened or endangered, critically endangered, there are stiff penalties for people who hurt the bats.
There's need to be an awareness and also political will in order to enforce all of these activities.
We can only do so much from here. We can issue the enabling policies, but we need it to be implemented on the ground, and we cannot do that by ourselves. We need the support of our partners. We have civil society, private sector, local government units are very important partners as well.
We still have an enormous amount to learn.
The Philippine Speleological Society and government agencies and universities are working together today to start mapping the distribution of caves, of cave bats, of populations, declines and disturbance in these caves, so that we can identify areas for focused on-the-ground conservation efforts.
We also need people, more people to study bats and to be interested in studying caves, because we need that information in order to come up with a sound management strategies for the conservation of caves and cave bats.
I think that one of the most important things that we need to do is simply work very hard to make the public more aware of the benefits that they gain from the bats.
It would be best to really work with the conservation education.
There are many NGOs in the Philippines, environmental organizations that are working to educate people at the barangay level, people living around caves, on the importance of bats in their community.
So producing posters that show the different species of bats so that people can see what they look like and recognize that they are awfully interesting animals can be part of that. Various kinds of educational programs and teaching and all of those training programs and so on is all part of that. If they understand through education campaigns that the bats are providing an enormous economic service, they'll want to protect them. I think that a lot of it comes down in some senses to balancing out short-term economic gain, often by a very small number of people, for the long-term economic benefits of the population at large. And in order for those long-term general economic benefits to win out over the short-term exploitation benefits, you have to have people who are knowledgeable and who care. And that is the single most important thing that's going to be involved.